You come to me and say, but what about my free speech? And I say, ABC is a private company. They can do whatever they want. And you go, but that's hypocrisy. Free speech means no. I seem to recall XKCD saying free speech does not mean you can say whatever you want. The First Amendment only protects your right to not be arrested by the government. Here's the reality. I am not going to stick my neck out and defend nasty, evil people who lie every day. Lie about me, lie about you, lie for political power. Ain't going to happen. Now, you may say we shouldn't get shows taken off the air because they have naughty opinions. Well, I'll tell you this right now. The way I see it is, you're not us. You live in a completely different world, and you're okay with that. We have tried to negotiate and beg for unity. Charlie Kirk said, he said, prove me wrong. That's what his canopy said, prove me wrong. They couldn't. So they tore out his tongue, figuratively. They ended his life. And now The View and these other shows are at risk? You think I'm going to lift a finger for you, who fanned the flames, who still to this day demonize moderates? I took a political compass test. It's coming up in a little bit on the @TimPool channel. And I'm still this one says I'm pretty far left, I guess. And I go through all my answers and explain my thoughts and views, and they align with everything I say in all my videos. The problem is, what makes you left or right is whether or not you believe what is true. Is Donald Trump a Russian agent? No. Well, at the time, if you said that, they'd call you right wing. Even if you were like, but I'm a liberal. Doesn't matter. You're with us, you're against us, because what makes you on the left is whether you're in the cult. So I am not going to stick my neck out for a deranged psycho death cult that murders people. Same is true for white supremacists. Same is true for, insert whatever group. Drug cartels, gangs, tankies. The modern, middle-of-the-road Democrat left is a death cult. Charlie Kirk was a moderate. His views were run-of-the-mill conservative Christian. You had heard him before. You'll hear him again. In fact, he was fairly moderate on those issues even, saying that gay people were welcome in the movement and that white identitarians were not. How about that? They killed him because he was dangerous. Okay. Well, if he's dangerous, man, I don't know anything about the rest of you. Newsweek reports FCC says The View could be targeted next. I say, sure, fine, I don't care. I ain't going to cry about it. Literally don't care. Y'all are evil people. They say, we had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA crowd desperately trying to characterize the kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them. That's what he said. That's what Jimmy Kimmel said. Okay. The suspected gunman was taken into custody. There clearly was a leftist ideology with the assassin. After Kimmel's comments, Nexstar Media Group, we know all of this. During an appearance on conservative commentator Scott Jennings' podcast on Thursday, Carr said he considered it worthwhile for the agency to examine whether The View qualifies as a bona fide news program. Carr said that over the years, several shows had been exempt from the equal opportunity rule, which states that during an election, if a show has on one political candidate, it must have on their rival candidates, plural, using the bona fide news exception. I think it's worthwhile to have the FCC look into whether The View and some of these other programs that you have still qualify as bona fide news programs and therefore exempt from the equal opportunity regime that Congress has put in place. In a July interview with Fox News, Carr said The View was in the crosshairs of this administration, citing co-host Joy Behar's outspoken criticism of Trump. The View, which is in its 29th season and operates under ABC's news division, did not address the network's suspension of Jimmy Kimmel during its Thursday broadcast. Previously, Carr had also raised similar criticisms towards NBC News' Saturday Night Live for an episode featuring Vice President Kamala Harris close to the 24 election, which led to NBC to grant equal time to the Trump campaign. President Trump wrote, "Great news for America. The ratings challenge Jimmy Kimmel show is canceled. Congratulations to ABC and finally having the courage to do what had to be done. Kimmel had zero talent, was worse ratings than even Colbert, if that's possible. That leaves Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers, two total losers on fake news NBC. Their ratings also horrible. Do it, NBC. You think I'm going to lift a finger for you? I don't care. These shows are almost dead as it is. They have no viewership. The medium is expired. It is archaic and anachronistic. So who cares? The fact that they're all coming out being like, Jimmy Kimmel got canceled. Nobody watches him. You didn't watch him. This is stupid. You know, look, I get it. You can make the argument that you're upset that the FCC is putting pressure on in this way. It wasn't the sole reason. Advertisers and affiliates were complaining about this. But there is something in law about standing and impact. I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you this. You file a lawsuit. The elections are a good example. And you say, these votes are fraudulent. The judge then goes, you needed 1,000 votes to win. You are citing what's fraudulent 300 votes. Even if those votes flipped, you wouldn't win. Therefore, there's no reason to actually go to court. Now, to me, that's actually crazy, but that's what happened during 2020. The reason I find that crazy is because shouldn't a court rule whether or not votes are fraudulent because of the impact on our country and society? But they said no. They said the amount of votes that you're challenging would not change the results. Therefore, we can grant no relief, and you will not get to adjudicate this in court. Then how do you? How do you ever prove that they were fraudulent votes if they steal an election? My point is this. I don't think there's going to be any relief granted. I mean, you file a lawsuit and they're like, okay, so you're suing that you have the show back on air, but nobody watched it anyway. 1 million people did. Well, 1 million people not in the key demo, and they weren't making money. The show was about to go out of business. Colbert his contract was up, and he's $40 million in the hole every year. $40 million. That's crazy. My ratings are way higher than all of them combined, and we make money. Andrew Alford, president of Nexstar, said Mr. Kimmel's comments about the death of Mr. Kirk, are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse, and we do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of local communities in which we are located. Colbert vomited into his own face. California Newsom said buying and controlling media platforms, firing commentators, canceling shows. These aren't coincidences. It's coordinated and it's dangerous. The GOP does not believe in free speech. They are censoring you in real time. I just want to ask, Newsom and Democrats, you do know that the internet is forever, right? Like, we can see the things you've said before. We have videos of you. You guys remember when Hillary was running? Maybe some of you are too young. It's just a wild thing to say, right? In 2015 and 16, she went to like Arkansas or something, and she talked like this. She said, when I run, you vote for me. And everyone was like, why is she talking like that? She's a New York senator. Because back in the day, before widespread television, media was mostly local markets. So if someone like Hillary, because she's old, right, went to, Alabama, the news teams that were there were locals, and they would only air locally. And so she wanted their vote. So she'd talk like this and say, listen, you vote for me, and I'm going to make sure to take care of yous. You get it? And then it airs all over, all the TV. Everybody in the local region sees it. And then in New York, nobody does. The only problem is the internet exists now. So she probably knew that, don't get me wrong, but she was just betting on older people who are a larger voting demographic to not. Then she goes to Boston and she talks like this. I don't know how to do a Boston accent. New York. Okay, I can do the fake Chicago. She goes to Chicago and she says, okay, listen up. You vote for me and the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl. I got tons of garage doors and garage doors openers, and we're going to get some Maxwell polish. Chicago. Nobody in Chicago ever talked like that. That's a lie. It's fake. It's the weirdest thing ever. I remember like back when I was a kid, like SNL did that whole, the Bears. And they were like, that's how people in Chicago talk. And I'm like, I've literally never met anybody in my life who talked like that. And you'd think older Chicagoans, right? They would have, no, it's just not real. And it's funny because they do the bit where like Chicago. No one ever said Chicago. It's a ah sound. Ah. It might as well be spelled O-H, Chicago. And so, like, I always meet people, and I'll be like, yeah, Chicago. And they'll go, hey, Chicago. And I'm like, yeah, literally no one's ever said that. It's just the weirdest thing. To be fair, regional diction has gone away with the expansion of television. But my point is this. It's almost like the Democrats don't know that we have them on tape saying the exact opposite. But thank you for the cannon fodder for the midterms. So I call upon all of you who watch these videos and watch my channel, seek out these posts. The curb your enthusiasm will never be more overused, because now you can just juxtapose everything Democrats have ever said next to everything they're going to say or have said recently. And you will find they're all liars and hypocrites. There's a good one from David Pakman where he's like, ABC fired Roseanne, and good for them. It was a business decision. And then ABC fires Kimmel, and he's like, I can't believe it. It's authoritarianism. Bro, we know you're lying. Like, we can see you. You know what I mean? Like, we can read your words, dude. It reminds me, it's like that Family Guy joke where Peter's in the elevator with one guy, and he farts, and he goes, it was you. And it's like, bro, who are you trying to convince? Like, I literally watched you do it. You're not tricking me into believing that I actually did that. Like, bro, Gavin, we can see everything you've ever said. This is ridiculous. I'll say this. Nuke the View. I ain't going to shed a tear, and I don't care. I used to work there. I used to work in the building with The View. It was funny. I'd be in the elevator and like Whoopi would be there. And I was like, well, I don't care. I like Whoopi. Whoopi Goldberg was cool. She's Guinan in Star Trek The Next Generation. I was like, oh, hey, I'm not going to bother her, though. I'm just an employee, right? Like, I work for this company. So I'd see her all the time in the elevator, like going to and from. And I was like, how's it going? Because I don't do that. But, you know, she's nuts. She may be Guinan, and I'll give her respect and credit for that always, because Star Trek is the best show ever. But she is nuts. I'm going to leave it there. Smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Stay tuned. More to come. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see y'all next time.